You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. What's going on, money makers? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. Today on the show, we're talking all things building and exiting companies, as well as podcasting, speaking, personal branding, and some other things with my good friend, Scoggins. This is not his first time on the show, so it's a little bit easier to have the conversation when we're doing like part two. And plus, we've been able to hang out in person at a few different events and stuff like that. So Steven's a really good dude, and I'm stoked to have him on the show again. But before we jump into the conversation, if you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur and you're using multiple softwares for marketing, email, forms, calendar, SMS, reputation management, et cetera, you're probably doing it wrong. You owe it to yourself to check out High Level's all-in-one platform for marketing and automation so that you can get back to focusing on what you know how to do best. They've created an amazing tool that somehow is simple as it is capable. So join over 3 million other businesses and go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis for a free 30-day trial to see what High Level can do for you. Now, without further ado, Steven Scoggins, welcome to the show again.
Brother, man, it's so good to see you again, man. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, it has been a little while. It's been a little while. You know what? I haven't been traveling as much as I did for a little bit of time. So it's been cool to like reconnect with a bunch of people that I have not seen in some time. So how have you been?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. I took about a year off from podcast. Well, me being on shows, me touring, me speaking, me doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, when you exit a company, all you want to do is breathe for a minute. So I did a little bit of that. I was actually asked recently, what'd you do to celebrate? I was like, well, I think I took 3 days off and then I started building the next thing as soon as I was done. So
That seems how it seems to be the path, right? What was the most recent exit?
The most recent exit was the construction company I built from '98. I started that when I was sleeping in a car, and scaled it to just under 9 figures and sold it in late 2023. I was fortunate enough to bring along a couple of the guys that helped me build it the last 7 years. I was, operating full time as the CEO and founder. And then I brought in 2 other executives along the way to help them get well past double 9 figures. And then we'll see how the other equity stake I still own does.
Yeah, right. You got leave some stake in the business just for fun,
That's
right?
That's right. That's right. Well, the reality is like, and I think goes for anyone who's, I'll tell you one big mistake that I made is I never built my business to sell it to begin with. I had to go back for 3 to 5 years, and literally took me about a 3-year window of time to go back and rebuild certain pieces of the infrastructure to get it in a position to sell it for maximum value and maximum, and so one of the things I caution entrepreneurs to do all the time nowadays is I really want them to focus on learning how to build from the inside out, right? So go back through your business with a fine tooth comb and actually look for the money you're leaving on the table through systems, processes, team members. These types of things all have to be reshifted. And what I recommend every entrepreneur do, whether or not they ever sell their business or not, is to build it as if they're going to sell it. And the reason being is because it's going to force you to focus on efficiency, productivity, and culture. Those are the 3 main things that people that make acquisitions want. They want a cash machine. They want something that's kind of predictable revenue, predictable EBITDA, predictable net incomes and cash. And if you can't get that done, it's gonna be really hard to exit. So as you can imagine, that 3-year runway window. I think you and I were actually hanging out on one of the yachts in San Diego when the last time we had to spend some time together. And I was smack dab in the middle of all the lawyer talks and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't really talk about it at the time, but I did learn a lot. So now as I'm looking to acquire equity stakes in companies and stuff like that, I'm being a bit more particular.
Is that kind of the new venture then? Is more private equity?
Well, it's more family. I would consider it more family office. So one of the things I've been recently doing is through our own entrepreneurship programs is I will go and work with an entrepreneur for close to a year. Because I really want to get to know them, really kind of see them kind of how they operate. And if along the way that I feel like I can bring a lot of value, not just with, an investment, a cash investment, and their business is doing well and it's structured well, and they take good mentorship and they're teachable, they have a spirit of humility, they're forward thinking, they're flexible. If I see that and see it exhibited over time, then sometimes I'll go ahead and step in and I'll say, hey, look, if I come in uninvolved, I'll obviously open up my network, my black book, if you will, and all about that, to kind of like help them scale their companies. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to partner with people who really aren't emotionally attuned. They're really not grounded. They're not emotionally regulated. They're hyper reactive. And unfortunately, anybody can fool you for 3 to 6 months. So I like to work with somebody for a year and actually try to help them scale their company without taking an investment. And then once the time that happens, then I'll spend some time and like say, okay, well, let's look and see what this looks like.
Mm.
And unlike most, I don't go into some of these deals and do it from a perspective of what's the best number I can get the equity for. I'll go in and I'll make a realistic offer based on a 3-year track record of cash, 3-year operational history, because that's just how I want to be treated. And when I was being courted, as you can imagine, when you go to let the marketplace know you're exiting a company that's generating considerable cash, there's no shortage of people who wanted to create creative deals, right? But you're never in your best interest. So yeah, it's one lane. I think there's the lane there. I'm still big into real estate. I love real estate holdings. A lot of my passive income comes from there.
Okay.
And then, recently, I've been being told by some of our mutual friends for years, like, dude, you're coaching 8, 9, 10 figure entrepreneur. Like, you need to be like charging people for this. So I started doing that, but then reinvesting that back into an entrepreneurial incubator development program. Because at the end of the day, I want to be Steve Myrick to as many people as possible. I think we chatted about this last time. My first mentor gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. And that aligned with faith and just focus and diligence. I built that large company and exited last year. So that's kind of where my heart is for the next phase.
Yeah, you mentioned that a lot of people want to come at you with different deals that are more serving them than they are serving you as the founder. Yeah. But a lot of people have to take those deals because they didn't do exactly what you talked about first, which is building a business that's defensible in that opportunity structure. So then when you have people coming at you and throwing these deals at you, you don't have to take them.
That's right.
You have the ability to be like, no, that's not a good deal for me. But if you did not position the business in that other way, you'd be forced to take whatever deals anybody would be able to offer you.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is like, if you'll focus on so there's 5 main things that people say that businesses fail for, right? Lack of funding, sales and marketing challenges, poor leadership or poor management teams, lack of product fit or market fit. Like you're trying to sell something the market doesn't want, and so on and so forth. I've actually discovered it's a lot simpler. And if you'll address these 5 enemies, and these are emotional triggers of an entrepreneur, you will necessitate the building through diligence and focus and productivity and systems and process. So first of all, impatience. Every single entrepreneur on the planet thinks they should be further along than they actually are. I don't care who you are, what you've been doing, until you're emotionally aware, like you can't be present in your business. You're always chasing the carrot, right?
Yeah.
I just gave you an example a few minutes ago. I was like, I exited the company and I was asked, how did you celebrate? I'm like, I don't think I did. Yeah. Like, dude, you did want something less than 0.2% of the population does, right? And I did it because I was always chasing the carrot. So there's the impatience piece. Arrogance, thinking you know more than you do and not being teachable and maintaining a spirit of humility. I can't tell how many founders I've talked to that still to this day think they know more, and their businesses are maybe mid 6 figures, maybe high 6 figures. And here I am coming in to coach at 8, 9 plus, and they don't want the coaching. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's not a fit. So that's the arrogance piece. Ignorance, not knowing what you don't know, right? So being open to actually getting the information and knowing where to search for that information, which comes through mentorship, right? Fear, right? So the fear of success, fear of failure, that's always on the inside. That's an inside job. And then the biggest one that led me down, dude, I can't tell how many emotional, poor decisions I made. I lost millions of dollars over the course of 30 years with this one thing, leading from insecurity.
Can you drill down on that a little bit more? That last one?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. When you go to scale a company and you're not emotionally grounded, emotionally self-aware, you're not really in what I call alignment. So I have a 5-part mechanism that we don't have time to jump into today, but in essence, these 5 gears, if you will, have to be aligned in a perfect way to build a scalable organization that does it fast, does it with proper culture, does it with proper finance, and et cetera. The number one cog is you. Right? Where are you operating from? Where are you making your decisions from? If you make decisions from insecurity, they're going to be rash. They're going to be last minute. And many times they create more problems than they solve, rather than doing what you'll see most 8, 9, 10 figure earners do, which is they start learning how to compound time, talent, and resources simply by making sure that they're actually getting the highest level of priority from data-driven decisions. So many entrepreneurs get all that wrong.
Yeah. So 2 of those I think go really hand in hand, and I want to kind of drill down on this a little bit more. So one of them you mentioned was arrogance. This one you mentioned was insecurity. There's a fine line between being confident and having arrogance.
Absolutely.
And And if you move over into the arrogance path, you are ending up in the situation that you talked about earlier. But then if you are not confident at all, then you're ending up in the
Yeah.
fifth one that you mentioned that you were falling prey to.
Yeah.
How do you think about deciphering between those two things, and how do you build confidence? Like how do you get your confidence to come across when you don't have the proof yet to point to say this is why I'm confident?
Yeah. Well, let's tackle the first part. So the easiest way to know if you're leaning towards arrogance and away from actually what I call humble confidence is the perspective that you're using. So arrogance is self-seeking. You're everything, you want the praise, you want the prestige, you want the accolade. Like it's very self-seeking. You want the money so you can go do what you want to do, rather than receiving wealth or developing wealth over time, so you can build a strong business that then serves the community, that then serves your team members, that then serves your family, right? So it's a huge perspective shift, and I think it really comes down to, are you pursuing your endeavor via selflessness, which leads to humble confidence, or selfishness?
Hmm.
If it's selfishness, it's going to feed your ego, and as a result, you're by definition going to be leaning more towards the arrogant side of things. I'm actually glad you really asked the backup question about how do you develop confidence when you don't necessarily have the credibility. To me, it's very simple. To me, you develop confidence through consistency. If you can show people that you're making consistent efforts of learning, growing, pursuing, challenging yourself, when go back to the insecurity piece. Early days, about 10 years in business, we were probably a $35 million company at that time. And I remember this. Like it was yesterday. I went and sat down at the quote unquote board table, right? It's like six of us at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposed to strategize. COO's there, director of operations is there, CFO's there, I'm there, right? And I said, hey, what's, kind of, we'd go department by department, give us an update. We call it executive summary, right? Well, they would say something, they'd put an idea, and I would shoot it down. And I would shoot it down, and I shoot it down. And I discovered the reason that I was doing that was out of insecurity. And this will dovetail in your question, by the way. The insecurity piece was because they all had CPA and MBA and all these acronyms by their name. And here I was, a high school dropout with dyslexia and ADHD. So I felt like I had to shoot their idea down from insecurity in order to actually do that. That actually lowered confidence at the boardroom, and also lowered confidence within self, because eventually you see that the confidence that you're trying to determine is coming from the wrong pursuit. So again, if you're early days, your early stage, and you want to have credibility, rather than seeking credibility, just actually work on consistency. Make sure you're showing up each and every day, present of mind, present of heart, and actually present of service. Great leaders, my experience has been, in fact, my company doubled when I finally got this one point through my head, was not about me. It was about the organization we could create together. So what began to happen is I might kick off the meeting with an opening prayer or something like that. But then after that, I shut up and listened. They all talked. I jotted down notes. Dude, some of the best ideas, I was telling Sean, our mutual friend Sean Anthony, this recently. Some of the best ideas that came out that created the scalability of the company came from other people sitting at the table, not me. So all that to say that if you're early stage, like, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know it all. Instead, be a student of the game and be pursuing the long game, and I think you'll win.
Here's a question for you. The thing that I struggled with the most in my business was keeping people smarter than me accountable for results that they said that they could do in an area that I was not proficient in.
Yeah.
It was like, theoretically, it made sense to me to be like, well, hire somebody smarter than you, pay them well, and have them make those decisions or whatever. But then if you make a bad hire, it could be detrimental to the business, which ended up being a big factor for us in our company. So how do you think about when it comes to like making some of these bigger hires for people, like, again, like what you're saying, they have the letters after their name. They're smarter than you when it comes to finance. They're smarter than you when it comes to operations. They're smarter than you when it comes to hiring, firing, HR, whatever the thing is, sales, marketing. How do you build systems in to actually know that they're doing their job correctly and that you're not wasting this six-figure or multi-six-figure salary on somebody who's actually not even doing the job well?
Dude, this is such a good question, because I see entrepreneurs struggle with this all the time. And I know I did for a number of years. I'll give you a three-part answer. Step one is, the bigger the position, hire slower. Whatever the position is, like if it's a COO or a CFO, full background checks, multiple meetings face-to-face with the team, without the team, with spouses, like anything that you can get to get a read on who this person might be at their core is going to be huge. Make sure and part of that part one is to make sure you've actually got the space and time to do your due diligence. Actually pick up and call the referrals. Actually ask somebody else in the marketplace. Have you heard this? These higher positions historically, like these leadership positions, these executive positions, more times than not, these people are already known in the marketplace in one way, shape, or form, right? So do your homework, right? Step two is not only have you spent the time due diligence, make sure you're really clear on what you're trying to hire. I see a lot of people who will go and hire a position they think they need rather than the position they actually need because they haven't sat down and like laid out what are our core priorities? What is the leverage points? What are the things that we really need to focus on right now? So spend some time actually listing out the priorities. When I tell people to build this, I call it, I stole it from Dave Ramsey a number of years ago, a friend of mine, the KRA, the key results area. It's a job description, but a summary form. Okay. That summary form, I went ahead and took it a step further. So when I go to build one, I'm actually, what are the personality traits I need? What are the character traits I need? What is the culture fit that I need? Then I'll start talking about what is the strategic and tactical things I actually need of each of those people. That gives me a line of sight for that step two I was mentioning to actually put together a target so I can actually see what I'm looking for, right? The third thing I would do differently, hindsight, and again, everything I'm telling you is I've learned from painful mistakes. I had $1.7 million stolen. Suspected stolen because, legal term there, suspected being theft because I couldn't read my own stuff. So there's a great book written by a guy by the name of Lee Benson. If you haven't had him on your show, you should. He wrote a book called Your Most Important Number. Okay. What he did is he built a $1 billion business in an aerospace, in the airline or aerospace industry, along with other businesses. And what the core message is every single position has one number that dovetails into basically your financial performance, that one person, all their efforts, all their drive, all their ambition is designed to uplift, right? So if you're CFO, it might be maximizing cash flow or reducing expenses. If you hire, like right now, I typically will kickstart off a business. I'll be the CEO for 2 or 3 years, but then pretty soon after that, I want to hire a full-fledged integrated base CEO to take me over, right? So I'm going to make sure that I've got the parameters. What are you aiming at? Okay, well, we need to increase top line revenue. We need to make sure customer satisfaction stays at this level. These types of things help you, again, know what to look for. And I'll give you a bonus one because this one really bit me in the butt. Part of the reason the embezzlement happened to me, this is like late mid 2000s, like 2016, 2017 when this happened, is even though I've been in business for like 15 years at that point in time, I didn't really know how to tear apart a CFO's cash forecast, the P&L, the balance sheet, all this kind of stuff. Here's what I did differently that changed even how I looked at business. And now it makes it super easy to look at other businesses that I'm considering investing in. Hire a full-fledged CPA to train you on how to read the documents based on your specific niche. Don't do it internally. The reason you don't do it internally because the person that's teaching you may or may not have the high ethics. And of course, if you do step one and step two right, you're going to hire better, which will hopefully avoid that one problem. But at the same time, I heard it said, I can't remember who said it, inspect what you expect.
Yeah.
Right. It's your job as a founder and a CEO to look behind those things. I just found it easier to look behind things when I only have 1 or 2 things to literally focus on that are like tea leaves of sorts. It causes me to pull the string, and that helps me out a tremendous amount.
Yeah. So you didn't have to develop expertise in the area, but you did need to have competence in the area.
You absolutely have to have competence, and you can either learn competence through pain, or you can actually hire people to train you what to look for.
Yeah. How many coaches do you think you've hired in your life?
Oh, shoot. I typically on average have 3 to 4 running constantly. A methodology that I use for that is because I do find a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to invest in coaches and counseling and mentorship and, and just, I would call it, we call it masterminds or retreats and stuff like that. I set aside 10% of my personal net income every year just for coaching. And this is me hiring people. And keep in mind, I coach 8, 9, 10 figure earners at and with different things, right? I still, to this day, I get coaches. Our mutual friend, Sean, that I was mentioned before, I was on his podcast. We did a live one not too long ago. And actually, I think it dropped today. But I tell him very point blankly that I had a guy named Chris Licurdo. Like a lot of my team member culture knowledge came from him, So I'll also piggyback on that to say that it's okay if you outgrow your coach long-term, meaning if their business gets to 10 million or something like that, and you're at 20, you probably need to find somebody who's at 40,
Sure,
right?
sure.
With character and integrity and all that kind of stuff. But there's some secret tips.
We've talked a lot about scaling businesses, what to do when your business is at 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. But there's probably a lot of people listening to this right now who think you're just speaking Greek because they're sitting there at a job, that makes them $70,000 a year. And they're just trying to figure out how they can make more money because 70K doesn't go as far as it used to, even a decade ago.
Yeah.
There's people that are disillusioned by the quote unquote American dream at this point, especially young people that are trying to come out of school. They are saddled with student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
The job that they got is only paying them $45,000 a year or something like that.
Yeah.
Housing prices are insane. Interest rates are up. They can't afford to. They can't start life and build wealth the same way that their parents' generation did for the first time ever in American history. 30-year-olds are doing worse off than their parents were at their same age economically. And they're sitting there going like, I can't even imagine 10 million. I can't imagine 1 million. I can't imagine 100,000. How do I take the first step? What would you say to some of these people that are listening as far as like tactical, practical? If you have never done this before, here's the type of business that I would be looking to get into because it's more secure. It has strong cash flow. It's in a good industry and you can start with next to no money.
Yeah. I'll say this much. So my middle son and a couple of his friends, I would consider they're currently all employed. They all have aspirations to be entrepreneurs. I would call them not entrepreneurs because they're willing to put in the effort, right? Entrepreneurs means I want the stuff that comes with when you make it kind of thing, right? Versus, hey, look, I'm willing to get after it. Step number one is, first of all, if you're disillusioned with your employer or for whatever reason you're not making enough, you feel like you're called to more, you actually have a entrepreneurial bug, and I mean that literally.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, by definition, I can look at somebody's eyes and almost tell you if it's gonna click for them, because there is a resistance, a persistence, and all this kind of stuff you have to kind of master. But if you do have that calling in your heart, and if I'm talking right now and you feel like a little jumbles happening in your heart, then you probably have an entrepreneurial gift, right? So, number one, I want you to list the top 5 things that you're really stinking good at. If you can't come up with all 5, get with friends and family and say, "Hey, what am I really good at? What's my as my good friend Bo would tell me, what's my superpower? What's my Michael Jordan superpower?"
Yeah.
List those 5 superpowers. Okay. Actually, when you pick the top 3 of those big superpowers and actually say, okay, if these are 3 of my superpowers, what problem can I solve for someone else with the utilization of these superpowers? So that's step 2. Once you can define the problem that you're actually trying to solve, now you can look at ways to provide the solution. Once you understand the solution you can do, now you can take the solution and benchmark it against the marketplace. If there's already pricing models and stuff like that. If there's not, and you need to create one, that's a great time to get on a call with somebody who is good at startups, like whether it be with your team or our team or whoever. Get on a call and actually let's talk about what a startup of this solution might look like, so you don't enter in one of the strategic mishaps of building a business, of developing a product and a service that no one actually wants to use.
Yeah.
A lot of times what you can do is you can actually go out in the early days and say to people that actually have that problem and say, "Hey, look, I've been watching you for a while, and I see you're struggling. You've told me you're struggling with this. I've seen you struggle with this. Here's what I'm thinking about creating. Do you think that would work for you?"
Yeah.
And beta test it.
Yeah.
You get past the beta testing, and then now you're off to the races. Because there's 5 phases in building a business: startup, testing, investing, scaling, and then you get the benefit of operator selling at the 5th one. Testing is actually what you should be doing even at the startup phase to make sure to be working. Once you do that, you're going to have the problem that you solve, the solution that you offer, and a way of proven path to revenue. And now it comes down to time, just internal gut check. Am I willing to pursue this for as long as 3 years while I'm working a full-time hustle? Can I get my family to buy into it? Can we come into agreement that this is our dream? This is what we're working towards.
Yeah.
Right. And then, yes, absolutely surround yourself with fantastic mentors. Like high school dropout, everything I learned, I either learned through pain, experience, or mentorship, period. Yeah. Hands down.
And mentorship seems to be the best of those 3.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
and ironically, the cheapest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think that's the trap that people fall into when they don't hire mentors. It's like, well, I can learn that. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you can, but why go through 3 years of pain and struggle to learn something that someone could tell you in a month?
It goes back to those 5 things I mentioned earlier, like arrogance and ignorance right there, babe. I mean, that's right there. And it's because we have the insecurity. We feel, again, I've worked with a lot of entrepreneur startups. The startups we consider 0 to 500K, 501K to 1,500,000. We consider those builders. 1.5 and above in net income, we consider those scalers, right? So those are the kind of the three levels that we kind of bucket entrepreneurs into. I spent a lot of time with free content, obviously for the 0 to 500K folks. But there's a sweet spot between 250 and 750. That's like a big sweet spot. And in almost every case, there is a pride that's in the way. There's an impatience of, hey, I got to be there. I got to be there now. And because you got to be there now, you're rushing decisions. You're not being strategic. You're not getting mentorship. It causes you to do the wrong things in the wrong way at the wrong time and cause this catastrophic failure. The embezzlement thing I mentioned to you earlier, like point blank, had I listened to my CPA a year earlier, like he was telling me, hey, something's not right here.
Yeah.
And taking the time to dig into it, I could have saved myself at least half that money, if not all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And a mentor would not have cost you $750,000. You know,
no, I think I think at the time, just to do our annual audit, I think it was 30 grand for the entire year of watching our, doing all of our accounting on the back end after our internal team did it. So yeah, it was an expensive mistake.
Well, Stephen, dude, I appreciate you for coming back into the world of content creation, because I'm always looking for more actual builders who are putting out good content. So are you starting up your podcast again, or just starting to do the tour again?
Yeah, no. So we never shut down our podcast. We kept doing it, but I'm going to be doing it in live and in person moving forward as much as humanly possible. I've just found that there's a bit of an energetic exchange that can happen during the live. However, Absolutely. My travel schedule is booking up fast. I got a new book launching next year, and obviously we got this new integrated entrepreneur assessment we just put out. So we have a lot of really cool tools. So
yeah. So if where would be the best place for people to go connect with you to get more from you?
Probably either stevenscoggins.com, and that's with a PH, SCOGGINS. Or I'm on all the platforms, verified and whatnot. But I'm personally most active in my team is as well in my Instagram, which is Steven with a PH _ Scoggins. There's a verified badge there, just because even today I still get a lot of impersonators selling crypto.
Yeah, that's how it goes, bro. That's how it goes.
That's right.
Steven _ Scoggins over on Instagram. That's Steven with the PH. Also, his podcast Build. If you're listening to this right now, you obviously like podcasts, so go check out Steven's podcast Build to get more from him over there as well. Dude, I appreciate you for coming on, man. Looking forward to our next hang in person at some point. Maybe we can do a part 2 in-person podcast whenever we get the chance. So always fun to chat. These things go by so fast, and sometimes I wish I had more time, but I got to get you going off to the rest of your schedule, and I got to jump on to another interview here in a second. So I'll again appreciate you for your time. I know you could do a plethora of other things with that. So thank you. Everybody else listening, remember, money only solves your money problems, but it's a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems if you got some money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. Peace out.